Sorry, I am just grabbing my slides. Here we go. All right, UX Design 101. We're going to jump right in. And let me just make sure I'm recording. There we go. All right. Can you guys see my screen? Yeah. All right, great. Cool. So this is an example of a UX experience vision statement from a drone delivery company that one of our actual students got a job at to deliver an accessible and memorable experience for drone up customers, clients, and delivery specialists. Essentially, almost every UX vision statement is similar to this. They're trying to deliver an accessible, a memorable, an excellent experience, a customer experience, a user experience, right? What they mean by excellent is it could be memorable, it could be creating an obsessive customer experience. It could be creating an experience that is very it has a particular persona that they're identifying, that they're trying to make it more user friendly for, etc. But let's dive in so we could make sense of all of this. So UX teams, essentially user experience teams, they have a design sprint. We talked about last few classes, we've been talking about the engineers and the typical sprint that they go through, right? 2 week sprints, right? Now, the design team, they also go through a sprint. It looks very, very different, but there's 5 phases. Typically, it's over 5 days, but it could be a smaller sprint. It could be a bigger sprint, depending on what they're doing, right? I've actually worked on teams at Verizon that were a little bit longer just because we were trying to solve for a lot more nuanced use cases. So in this particular example, there's a understand phase. So this is where the UX designer is going to meet with you, and they're going to say, "Hey, Omar, what's the problem? What are we trying to solve for?" And Omar's going to be like, "Hey, I'm trying to create a really custom onboarding experience for our for the parents of this Code Ninja's website, right? And this is a code platform for kids, but we need the parents to sign up, and we're trying to make it a user-friendly experience for these parents, right? So in this understand phase, when they understand that it's for parents, perhaps Gen X, for example, they're going to empathize, and they're going to make sure that they fully understand what are the pains, what are the problems, what are the issues, what are the types of what are these types of users looking for. These are all of the different types of questions that they're going to ask Omar, right? Because they really want to understand the user and understand the needs and the problems. Once they understand that, then they could go after what Omar is asking for, which is, we want some designs for onboarding. So they're going to go by themselves. This is like them working by themselves, and they're going to sketch. When we say sketch, what we really mean is like digitally sketch. They're going to use their Figma or whatever design tool that they're using, and they're going to come up with some high fidelity mock-ups, right? Some designs that they could show you. And then the next day they're going to come to you and they're going to say, all right, Omar, here we go. Here are the designs. And typically they're not going to show the product manager, they're not going to show one design. They're going to show perhaps 2, 3, 4, 5 different designs, right? And Omar, the product manager, is going to be like, all right, I don't like this one, I don't like that one, but I really like this one. But the winner is this one right here, right? So after that, Omar, the product manager, makes the decision on what he likes. Then they're going to go and build what we call a prototype. Now, to be really frank and honest, this whole step has actually kind of gone away. It's funny because technology's changed, everything's changed so rapidly, right? There was a time 5 to 10 years ago where the designs they're showing are like static images, right? You could say. And then the prototype is like a clickable prototype where it looks like the real thing, and you click on the button and then you see another image. We call that prototyping. But Figma, which is the newest design tool that everyone's using, it kind of integrates all that already. So you don't actually even have a prototype phase. Whatever they're showing here, it includes the prototype. So it looks like a fully functioning website. You're clicking on buttons and it's showing you other images. It's showing you the whole entire flow. It looks and feels like the real thing, but obviously there's no code, there's no website or anything. It's just a bunch of images kind of stitched together in this Figma software, right? So when Omar actually decides, hey, like I like this, I mean, they're skipping the prototype, they're going to go and validate. And this part is really important. And depending on what you're building, how important, how much time investment is going to go into this, right? If you're talking about just like a CTA, like you don't really need to go and spend all this money and validate, right? But if you're talking about building out a brand new Verizon plan, like the Go Kids plan, I helped launch the Go Kids plan many years ago. Um, that is a huge ordeal. This is this is going to impact like millions and millions of people. We can't mess this thing up, right? So we will take whatever design that we have here, and what we're going to do is we're going to validate it through usertesting.com. And for those of you that did the quick homework assignment, you guys checked out usertesting.com. That's just one of many, but that's one of the most famous tools that we use in the industry to very quickly throw some designs in front of customers that fit our persona, and they'll go and click through and they'll give their commentary. And you might have like 100, you might have 500 people, but you'll have enough that it'll be statistically relevant. So you are statistically significant where you can say, hey, the majority of people, they actually hate this, hate this design. I thought it was, Omar's like, well, I guess I was completely wrong. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's sketch again, right? And this might happen over and over until you land on something that actually works. That is the phases of the design sprint. The companies that do this correctly, I'm telling you, they do a really good job. Verizon, for the longest time, I haven't been there for a while, for a couple of years, but when I was there, their UX design team was phenomenal. They had an entire UX research team dedicated to just this part right here, right? It was fantastic, right? Like they had dedicated people that would do like the sketching and the mock-ups, right? They had an entire dedicated team that would actually go and do like research reports for us based on competitive research. It was amazing, right? I mean, it was so crazy that when I said validation through usertesting.com, most companies don't have this, by the way, but at Verizon, they actually would pay like several thousands of dollars to bring customers in to what looks like an FBI interrogation room. I'm not joking. And literally, I sat behind a double glass window, right? We would sit behind and we would watch from the other side. They wouldn't even know we're there. And we're all like scientists, like taking notes. And we're watching the customer on a big screen, actually clicking through our designs. It was awesome. It was actually so cool to watch that. And I think maybe I think usertesting.com, honestly, they've solved all those problems. They've been able to help do this stuff at scale. So there's no real use of bringing people in anymore, like doing focus groups and stuff like that. But it was a thing, like literally 10 years ago, which wasn't that long ago. That's what I was doing. Now everybody does it on usertesting.com. So we're gonna kind of switch gears now and kind of move a little bit more into the UX design land.
But Ari, before we moving, so in the decide part, is it only the product manager that has authority to decide? Okay, just go. Okay, we are okay with the design, or the stakeholders need to be there also.
I'm so sorry. There's somebody that was just trying to Sid is trying to join. I was just trying to help him join the Zoom call. My bad. Um, I'm sorry. Can you repeat your question?
My question was that in the decide part for the design, is it only the product manager has authority, as
Mm,
you said, to decide, or
mm.
the stakeholders are there also to decide? Is it mutual decision, or is just comes from product manager?
Fantastic questions. Product. We are product managers are the owner. We own the space. We will take. we could take opinions from stakeholders, but
Hmm.
that the whole purpose of a stakeholder is they got stake in the game
Right.
for whatever reason. So if they, perhaps it's a page that's owned by them and we're putting a feature on their page, so they might have some commentary, right? So we'll run it by them. But if this is the feature that we own, we're the decision makers. We know the customer better than anyone, any of the other stakeholders or other product managers, because this is if it's onboarding that Omar owns, then that's what Omar is the expert. This is his land. He gets to decide on what goes forward and what doesn't.
I mean, and I'm sorry to take you off on a tangent. I'm sorry, didn't want to cut you off there if you want to complete your point.
No, no, please go ahead.
Gotcha. So, I mean, to how much leeway do we have? Like, let's say, at that point where it's, the decide factor. They come to me, they come to
Mhm.
Rauf,
Mm.
Minaz, whoever, and we don't like it. And then we say, go again, start again. Is there a time where it's like, hey, I mean, we have a 2 month window here and we gotta push something out, or is it, hey,
Mm.
we can extend it a bit? I mean, I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself here. I just
No, no, no. You're good. You're good. Um, that's a great question. So, in terms of timelines, there are times when you need that design yesterday. Meaning, you're about to remember you as a product manager. After you get the designs and whatnot, you're going to attach that design to your user story, and you're going to present it at when in your grooming call. So maybe you have the grooming call on Thursday and you have the user story, you wrote the acceptance criteria, everything's ready, and you've been bugging your designer, and the designer is like, hey, I'm still stuck in the design sprint. Well, there's a little bit of wiggle room there. Either if you really want to hold off because this is a really big decision and you don't want to mess this thing up, then you could always meet with your engineers without the design, go through the acceptance criteria and whatnot, and tell them we're not going to put story points until we get the design. By the way, engineers are finally picking on this stuff. They will push back now in a good way. And they'll say, we're not going to put story points on anything until we see the design. We want to take a look, which is a good thing, right? Honestly, even as product managers, as pushy as we want to be, you want your engineers to fully understand what they got to build. And I'm telling you, there's nothing like that picture, man. There's nothing like looking at the graphic design. There's nothing like seeing it and being like, oh, I get it. Because think about it. If I told all of you guys right now to describe me, but to a blind person, right? I think you get where I'm going, right? Like somebody's gonna be like, all right, he's this guy with a yellow hat. Yellow hat means a whole lot of things to a lot of people. Like, is he like curious, like the man with the yellow hat from Curious George, right? Like, who is this guy, right? He's got blue glasses. Okay, like what kind of blue glasses? Like, he's a brown guy. Okay, is he Mexican? Like, what are we talking about, right? Uh, you know, he's got this microphone that's like hanging upside down. Everybody's imagination. Like, if I told you right now what my board is right there, and I just described to you what's there, and then I showed it to you, I guarantee it's not going to be what you thought. You guys know this from reading books. I mean, I'm really bad. How many people have read a book and then watched the movie after? Anyone? Raise your hand.
Yep.
Nadal's like, yo, I always watch the movies and read after. So yeah, I'm with you, Nadal. uh but like if you ever read the book Malcolm X, right? It's a phenomenal book, the autobiography of Malcolm X. Highly recommend it, right? If you ever read the book is so much better than the movie. I love the movie, by the way. Like the Denzel Washington movie, I love it. But the book's better than the movie. Ask any kid about Harry Potter. They'll tell you the book is better. My daughter, my daughter would be found at like midnight, like trying to read through a book that's this thick. And honestly, like, sometimes I'll find her like half asleep with Harry Potter. The other time she's reading like Tafsir Quran, and she just reads, right? But I'm going on a tangent here. All right. Let's
If
get
it's a
back to
book that I really like, sometimes I don't watch the movie because it messes it up for me.
yeah, yeah. So
I had a quick question about like the designers. So does it vary from company to company as far as like will there will there be separate UX designers versus other developers who are actually designing the page and doing your story points and all of that? Or is it sometimes like developers who do all of that together? Maybe
okay,
silly
I think I
question, but I
understand your
was just
question.
wondering like,
Yeah. So there's a complete dichotomy. So if you're wondering, if you're asking, do developers sometimes work on design? No, no, never. And if they do, they should be shot. They are developers. I have had developers try to do design. It was the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. I had a wish list heart icon. They made it look like the worst heart icon. I think they did it green, if I remember correctly. It was supposed to be red. I'm like, what kind of like hearts are red? They're not green. And they're like, well, you didn't specify the color. And I was like, come on, man. Right? So, no, the UX design team, they are specialists. That's all they do is UX design. All they do is what you're looking at here. This is what they do. They don't do development, period. And developers, they don't do design. Now, are there different types of developers? Yeah, of course. Front end developers work on the UI, right? The look and feel. They're the ones that actually do all your front end stuff. And the back end developers work on all your databases and servers and API calls. They work on the back end. And then there's full stack engineer. I'm a full stack developer. A full stack developer has the capability of doing both. So like I could actually develop like a entire app end to end, database servers, front end components, the whole nine. All right, so I'm gonna skip through some of this stuff. The EDIPT framework. So UX designers, they will typically work through the EDIP framework, but I want you to fully understand this in this program because understanding Stanford University's design thinking framework, it actually came from IDEO and then Stanford kind of popularized it. This framework is phenomenal for us as product managers to come up with new ideas. So there are several steps to it, and we are going to spend time kind of diving a little bit deep into this at some point. But high level, essentially, when you're coming up with a new idea, the first thing you want to do, even before you start defining the problem and stuff, you want to understand the user. Don't start solving problems. Don't start coming up with solutions. Don't start being like, okay, we really need onboarding for like, you got to like zoom out 10,000 feet and stop and be like, who is the user? And don't stop saying the word user. I actually hate saying user. We actually use personas. We're going to talk about that in depth. So you're going to identify who the persona is. This is a particular market segment, and then you're going to empathize it. And there's many ways to empathize. Things like empathy maps, things like, and we're going to go through many, many different ways to empathize. But essentially, you're going to really, really not just understand, but I want you to really feel, put your feet in the shoes of the person that you're working with. I always, I'm going to stop here. This is such an important point. I'm always shocked at companies that don't let their product managers have a free subscription to their service. So I was hired by Blue Shield of California. Guess what health insurance I was given? United Healthcare. It's like, I'm a full-time employer for Blue Shield of California. Why wouldn't you like it's mine? It doesn't make sense on so many levels. Are you secretly trying to tell us that they're better? Or are you telling us that like they're cheaper? Because like, how in the world do you want me to even, because many times you're like, all right, well, I need to test this thing out, right? I'm going to do a little research. Let me log in. Well, you can't log in. How you don't have a personal account, right? How are you going to log in? The product manager should feel what everybody else feels like, right? If you're at AT&T, right? Everybody at AT&T should be on an AT&T plan. Every single worker, I don't care what worker you are, a custodian or a product manager, they should all be on AT&T. They should all feel the pain. They should all be like, oh, like this sucks, right? I'm on T-Mobile and I was working at AT&T, right? Same thing at Verizon, by the way. Like I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was telling my boss, I was like, there's nobody on our team that actually has Verizon. Right? This is crazy. And then at least for the product, we're a very small group, by the way. Even if you go to a huge Verizon company, 100,000 people company, the product team at 100,000 people, there's 100,000 people working there. The product team might be like 100, 150. That's it. Very few people. So with that said, I mean, like, dude, like, not only should we have Verizon's account, we should have some like our competitor accounts, right? Like, shouldn't we have access to T-Mobile? Like, I'm the product manager for the checkout page. I should know what T-Mobile looks like. Pay $200 or whatever, so our team could have a login to T-Mobile. Like, come on, you got millions of dollars coming in. You can't. It's mind numbing. And I could go on and on about this, but this is like, it's just common sense stuff. I never understood. But you, as product managers, you should think about that, right? You should actually talk to your boss and be like, hey, you know, like, we should eat our own dog food, right? You should make it a big case. It's something that, like, I'm a big believer of. If you don't eat your dog food, how can you improve the experience for somebody? How can you feel the pain? AT&T's customer support's the worst. How come your customer support people, they're on T-Mobile? Because they're like the best, right? Like, anyway, sorry. I digress. Back to class. So empathy is really important. After you empathize, then you define the problem, right? And it's really important to define the right problem. Are you like, there's a problem that you think is a problem? What about if Nancy, the 35-year-old mom of 2 kids, is your main persona? What's her problem using the website? You're Mr. Developer guy, super fast on the computer. Nancy, she doesn't use a computer every day. She doesn't use her phone every day. In fact, forget that. She doesn't use the computer at all. She just uses her phone. Here you are looking at this big, nice monitor and creating a beautiful web experience. What if 99% of your users use the phone? Shouldn't you be thinking about the phone? Like, are you define the right problem? Absolutely critical. And then ideate. Now you can ideate. Now you can come up with ideas because you're going to solution for the right problem. And I'm going to teach you the double diamond method. That's, again, like an MBA framework as well as a design thinking framework. And then prototyping is what we were just talking about with the design. UX designers coming up with designs, testing it with usertesting.com. And when you finally decide, then you implement. That's when you finally attach it to a user story, and let's go. Let's take it to the agile roller coaster. All right, so accessibility is the thing. I'm going to pause here for a second. Does everybody know what accessibility is? So, like, outside of the digital world, you guys know what accessibility is? It's really creating, making, places and experiences accessible for handicapped people, right? And I'm actually really happy and glad that we live in a world where we're not just recognizing handicapped people as like just a big black box. There's people that have visual impairments. That's totally different than people that have seizures. People that have cognitive, learning issues. People that are deaf. They're completely different. Somebody that has a cognitive or learning disability is way different than an auditory, somebody that's deaf, right? Somebody that's deaf might be a genius. He's just deaf, right? So you need to be aware of this because more and more we're living in a world where you need to make these experiences accessible because they are a market segment. And if you ignore them, you're ignoring revenue opportunities. So all your websites should have accessibility requirements. There's an actual product manager role just for accessibility. I don't specialize in it. If you ever wanted to get into it, you could research it. But all user stories typically have a section that people like myself just copy and paste, but it basically makes sure that it's part of the definition of done. Every story has to have accessibility checklist, right? Now developers, they got to make sure, hey, like if there's somebody that's blind, then we should have a screen reader. It's going to visually explain where what's on the right on the screen. So this is important for you to understand and just kind of know about. Testing early and often, we've talked about this over and over again, but this is like the whole agile idea, right? If you could do user testing before development, great. If you can't and you get something out into public, it's better to get a smaller version of your feature out, like maybe it's a CTA, and do what's called A/B testing. And we'll talk about A/B testing as we move on in our journey. All right, so the design tools, man, this is a crazy area. If you came to me literally 10 years ago, I would have told you that, these are the these are like the kings of the space, right? And then, a bunch of other players came on. Adobe XD started becoming really popular because they were like using, they were a software for Mac and Windows, and a bunch of other players. But essentially, for the longest time, what would happen is designers would always have MacBooks, and they would always use Mac software. And when they have a design, they try to share it. We never had access because it was too expensive, right? When I was at eBay, I remember like I just wouldn't have access, right? And even I think at Verizon initially, and then this player came in, and they destroyed the whole game. Figma. They created a software, a SaaS solution. It's all in the cloud, and anybody and everybody could just access the designs with a link. You work on the designs just like on Google Drive, just like on Google Slides, just everything's in the cloud. There's no software, it's just everything's online. This changed the whole game. Now developers could access it, I could access it, you could access it. So Figma is basically what the whole design community pretty much uses now. Like, I don't think anybody uses anything else but Figma at this point. You can use Figma for your hackathons that you do here if you really, really want to. If you're excited and you want to get into it, I totally support you. You're gonna have to learn it on your own. It is not for the beginners, right? It's for people that want to really get into it. Otherwise, I have so many other, you can literally just even Google very quick mock-up tools for product managers. And there's just tons, literally like hundreds that you could use. And it's just drag and drop, drag a button, drag this, drag that. Super simple. That's all we need. We're not designers. All right. All right. And now, like, what's the difference? We keep using, you probably heard me use all these terminology, right? Like you've heard me say wireframe, prototype, mock-up, like there's so many different words for this. So this image that looks like chicken scratch, right? That's something that we definitely do, right? That's like me right here. And I'm not the artist, definitely. Couldn't draw if my life depended on it. This is like me. And this is what we call a low fidelity wireframe. This is what we need to get our ideas out. This is it. Like if you just know how to do this, you're good. Just do this on a piece of paper, take a picture, upload it, good. I'm happy. Because this is like a logo. This is kind of like, whatever. This is going to be an image. This is like your CTA, right? This is all the developers generally need to know, or your designer, so you can have a discussion. Your designer, however, is going to make this, what we call a mock-up. This is a fully fleshed mock-up that looks like the real deal. We call it a mock-up, right? That's the difference. And you can forget about prototype, because prototypes, like I said, the mock-ups kind of like come with the prototypes in Figma, so just ignore that. Some of you will make something that looks like a mock-up, and I have a whole bunch of cheat codes on how to make it. I use my secret sauce is Google Draw, by the way. Out of everything I've used, believe it or not, Google Draw is amazing. I can show you some really crazy stuff because you can literally copy and paste stuff and make things go away really fast. And then you could just, take a button from here, take a button from there, add it. It's insane. So high level, this is it. And then I've kind of like talked about this, but wireframes are typically the first step of the product design process. It's often called the skeleton stage. They offer a basic, often black and white visual representation of a product's user interface with rough sketches and diagrams outlining the layout of a page. Wireframes don't just fall within the purview of designers, though. Researchers, PMs, stakeholders, they use wireframes to express their ideas. Again, this is for this type of drawing, the stuff that Raouf did and that I did and that you'll probably do. This is what we need just for us to have a discussion, right? You could do this on the back of a napkin, right? Again, we're not designers. We don't have to do the hardcore design. This is all that's required from me and you. All right. So I kind of told you about the difference. We're going to kind of skip through this. And I was talking about prototypes. The cool thing with prototypes, even in Figma, essentially you're kind of looking at the flow chart. So all the designs are kind of put like this, and then they're kind of stitched in. So when you double click into here, then there's a little login, and it allows you to kind of click or fill it in, and then click on this login. And again, there's no code or anything. The UX designers can literally attach this click to this image right here. It's just an image. So when you click on this, it goes to this image. When you click on this, maybe it goes to this image, right? Click on this, maybe it goes to this image, etc. So they're just a bunch of clickable images, and it looks like the real thing. Again, why is this important? Simply because before you begin actually doing development, you want to make sure that it looks right and it looks good. And maybe you want to, test it out on usertesting.com to make sure your users like it before you invest thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in developing it. All right. Oops, my bad. That's actually one of our guest speakers that will be coming here, but not today. All right, we talked about this. All right, so let me pause here and ask if there's any questions. So we talked about UX research, we talked about UX design, the principles, UX design thinking, and essentially you have an idea now of the tools that designers use. High level, this is all I really want you to understand from a, UX design, what they do and how we interact. That's what I want you to understand. Any questions from anyone? Yep. Manas? We'll go and then we'll go to Tasneem right after.
I just wanted to ask, so for every sprint or when we're working on something, it may not be that we're building from scratch, right? Every single time, the design, could it be possible that it's already say it's a website and there's a page on the website, could it be that it's already designed and we're just changing some of the format of it or something like that?
Oh, I see. Like a redesign.
Yeah.
Like a redesign. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Redesigns happen all the time. When I was at Blue Shield, when I was at HCSC, when I was working for a startup company called Vitals, and Vitals basically had the contract to do a complete redesign end to end for HCSC, which was like Blue Shield for Chicago. We redesigned the entire site. But there's other times when you're just redesigning a particular flow, a particular page, and there's times when you're just kind of redesigning a particular component. So yeah, sometimes I mean, most of the time, half of the time, maybe it's not a new idea at all. It's not a new component. It's just, hey, like I'm monitoring, the flow. It looks like customers, they all drop off on this page. Like, let's get rid of the friction. Case in point, one of the things that I owned in Verizon was our checkout experience, right? And I own like TMP, which is like our device protection plan. So our device protection plan was like one of those annoying steps before you purchase your phone. So you're going through your phone, you're adding accessories, and then you get another page and it's like, okay, choose device protection. And what we noticed was like there would be a drop off, right? Because people would get confused. They're like, there's all this legalese. Which one do I do? And it was so much friction. People literally would drop off on that page. So we experimented with it and we're like, you know what? Why don't we just drop that page and we will, after they order the phone on the order confirmation page, there'll be a link to choose their device protection. Let's get them in and then let them choose. And guess what? It skyrocketed. Like we like our conversion rate was through the roof with that. So you're always optimizing. You're always looking for little wins and you're testing and you're experimenting. That's the fun of this, right? I could tell you're smiling when I know the little scientist in you likes this, the researcher in you, and it is fun because you get to really see human behavior. Like, and when you look at it, work at a big company with millions of people, this is really the human experience. Because there's people that are like, hey, like here's you get to see all the demographics. Like, okay, the females are doing this, males are doing this. Oh, look, like these are like the younger people. And not to spook you guys out, but UX design teams, they don't get access like this. But we're going to spend time on analytics, but there are qualitative analytics and quantitative. You guys know what quantitative analytics are: Adobe Analytics, click-through funnels, 31% of this, 21%, how many people click this and that. Everybody knows this. But we have access to qualitative. Qualitative and data is stuff like we actually had live recordings of every single person that uses the website. Millions of people, video recordings of them going through the site. I know that sounds creepy. Like, you can literally look up like your enemy by their phone number. You're not supposed to, right? You can like watch them going through the site. You can see where they're struggling. And the whole point is you should see where you should actually watch some of these videos because you'll actually see where they're struggling. Like, hey, like, because if you notice everybody's dropping off on the page, let's look at 20 people that go through this page today. Oh my God, at 4 p.m., everybody dropped off. Why at 4 p.m.? Why not at any other time? Maybe because, at 4 p.m. there was a crash. There was a server crash. Okay. Or maybe it's just like, oh man, like ever since Tuesday with the new release, everybody's been crashing. Or you'll find things like, okay, everybody goes through this particular page, and when they get there, they like half the people are getting stuck. Like they're like, continue. Or they're like, I'm so frustrated. I can't, like, you could tell they're just like spamming the whole thing because they can't find what they're looking for. Those are all areas of improvement, and numbers don't show you that. That's another reason why, and this is the last thing I'll say on this topic. That's another reason why there's a big proponent on these surveys, CSAT scores. So are you guys familiar with, have you guys been on websites where they show, a little brief survey and stuff? Have you guys been in that? And when it's really frustrating, I mean, I'm sure you guys are like me, like we only fill that stuff up when we're really pissed off, right? Like we're like, this thing is crap, right? Right? Am I the only one? I'm not the only one, right? All right, good. So, but that's really, really, really good information, right? If you're like, man, there's like 10 people cursing out our company because something is breaking, we got to check into that. Like, why is that happening? Engineers they don't have time to look at that. Designers, they don't got time. The only person that should have time, that should be caring, is the person that owns the page, which is us. So if like Tasneem, if she owned, the onboarding experience, for example, she's the one that will care. And if Omar owned, the checkout page, he might not care about those pages that are breaking in onboarding. But everything's related, because Omar might be like, hold up, why is my conversion rate, why is it like tanky? And then he'll actually go up the funnel and be like, hold on, it's all tanky because of onboarding, or it's all tanky because of this page. Let me get with Jeffrey Smith, who owns this page, because I need to talk to him because everything's breaking. Because we're all, because Omar is evaluated on conversion rate. He's in the checkout flow. But his conversion rate is only as good as the people that make it that down to that point. If somewhere up higher, everybody's like falling out, Omar's not going to look that good, right? Does that make sense, everyone? All right, cool. Tasneem, did you have a question? Omar, you have a question? Anyone?
I have a question. How
Yep.
can we really see whether the particular page is being dropped off at a certain point? Like, not everybody has that visibility. We as a product owners will be focused on getting the product done or getting the
Mhm.
stories completed. But how, as a business, uh, as a product owner, would we get the demographics for that? Would they give us the minutes, or would they give us the charts or anything like that every
All of it.
day or something?
All of it. Yes.
Okay.
That great question. You're responsible for this page. As somebody that's responsible with that senior role, you will fight for that, and you will get that. So you're going to have access to Adobe Analytics. You should have access to Tableau. If you're talking about like real-time stuff and like certain other databases that you need access to, you'll get it. There's a lot of different, depending on the company you're at and what they've invested in, you'll get lots of other tools as well. So, but gone are the days where they're going to be like, okay, here's SQL, like go do some SQL queries. Like, you don't have to do that anymore. Gone are those days. Now, with so many tools out there, they'll give you access to tools. They're so user friendly. You'll be able to very quickly find your dashboards and find what you're looking for. Adobe is great. There's so many that are great for this stuff. I would say, like there are some other, when I was talking about that qualitative data and they're doing like recordings and stuff, there are several companies that do that. Like Verizon had a specific company that was doing that, and they will give you access, and you could literally look up like any day, any phone number, you could look it up literally by country, by city, by OS, and you could find anybody. I mean, that's going through it. And this is all really, really important, because you're not trying to be a creep, but you're trying to find out where are people struggling, what's working, what's not working. You need to spend at least an hour every single morning, right? Like one of the first things I would do is I would look at all my dashboards, right? Because you want to have at least 2 touch points, one in the morning and one in the evening, where you're just checking in, right? The last thing you want to do is you don't want your boss or leadership to find something before you do. That will make you look really, really bad, right? Like there's a VP that's like, hey, why is this page down? Why are there like all these complaints coming? And then your boss is like calling you like, hey, what the heck's going on? And you're like completely clueless. You're not going to be forgiven for that, right? Because you have access. It's not like, you just make it a habit every day in the morning and the evening. Just make it a good habit of just checking in and looking at your data and looking at the comments and looking at everything. This is stuff that, you're just going to get used to, because yes, you will get pulled into the, daily stand-ups, and you'll get pulled into your grooming calls. But how many grooming calls? Like twice a week? Tuesdays and Thursdays? I mean, what else are you doing? Daily stand-up, it's 15 minutes every day. Sprint planning, it happens only once every 2 weeks. So there's not that many meetings that you like have to go to, you see. So a lot of this time you're kind of by yourself. Now, if you're by yourself and you're not doing what, your work, you're going to get in trouble, because the whole point, you have all of this responsibility on your shoulders, and you need to and they're giving you all of this access because they expect you to be on top of it. There's nobody checking. Sometimes people ask me, they're like, so like, somebody checking up on you, or somebody telling you what to do, or no, like it's kind of like, when you have kids, right? Like your parents aren't going to be there for you. Like now you got kids, you got to make the decision. What's the discipline? What's this? What's that? What's the schedule? I had kids young. I don't know about you guys, but I had kids really, really young. I had kids when I was like 24, 25. So like my daughter is like going to college now. So like I'm not that old, by the way. Like I'm young. I'm old, but I'm not that old, right? I'm younger than Nadal. He could verify that for you. He was at college when I was in high school.
Yeah, post that picture.
Yeah. He'll share like a crazy picture like way back from like actually more than 25 years ago. Yeah, you could throw that
Wow.
picture in the Slack. And don't share that picture that he shares in the Slack. It's an old school picture.
So basically, in this job, you're proactive, and not only you're proactive, you are like developing stories for fixing your products. You identified a problem, and now you're taking that problem to the developers and saying, "Hey, I need to set up a meeting for this issue. What do you guys think about it?" And then having a brainstorming session, and then pulling them over, and then trying to get basically develop a roadmap, and then put that into your story, or put that into backlog. Is that part of already a developed product?
So from the front end perspective, it's
Uh-huh.
going to follow more of what I was talking about, this UX design process. You want to follow,
Okay.
you don't want to talk to developers until you talk to the UX design team. You want to, even if you're not dealing with the UX design team, you want to kind of do your own research. You want to identify the problems and identify the empathy maps, really, go through the entire UX design process first, then get your designs. And then when you're kind of very certain and solid on the customer experience, then bring it into the grooming call. And at the grooming call, only then will you review your story with the graphic, with the mock-up, and get the developer feedback. Because the developers, their job is just to talk about the technical feasibility of this stuff, what's capable, what's not capable. Sometimes designers, they put too many ideas in, and they're like, hey, this is too big of a story. We got to break it into 2 stories, right? Great questions, guys.
Brother, I have a quick question. So you work looking at Verizon and also now recently at AT&T. Do they use any matrix? You're working as a product manager of any matrix that you use, because of course, if you look at the matrix, the different matrix, that would be helpful, right? So any matrix that you use there?
Like the RACI matrix you're talking about?
Yeah.
I see it all the time, and program managers and Scrum masters, they like using that at these
Right.
larger organizations. Yeah, like I've seen it, but
Mhm.
like the younger folks, they don't care. They don't read it. Like, we're kind of old and we'll like look at it, we'll read it. The young folks, they don't read, right? And I'm really bad. Unfortunately, I am old, but I have a very young mindset. It's as if like I never matured after 24. Right? Like my son and me, we look like brothers. If you ever saw my son, like he looks like he's 25 and I look like I'm 25 sometimes, and we just look like we're brothers. But we don't read, right? Like they're not like these RACI diagrams, even those beautiful chart and a description of the roles and stuff like that. Like nobody reads that stuff. Unfortunately, it's just the new generation, right? It's just that's why I don't really see it anymore. Like startups, they don't do it. They don't just but that's a good question, and I've seen it, I've read a little bit of it, but it's just one of those things that leadership wants people to do, and like no one cares.
Okay.
Like that whole top-down approach it's not good. There should be a bottom-up approach. Like this whole idea of like leadership needs to come in and make sure that they need to sign off on what the developers are going to do. Leadership needs to come in and give a green light to Sid, who's the product manager. No, not at all. Sid decides on what he's going to do in the sprint, period. No one tells Sid what to do. There's no stakeholder that tells him. He doesn't need permission from anyone. It's if Sid is the product manager, he's going to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Hey, leadership, I'm letting you know what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. This is the roadmap. This is what I have coming along. This was what approved. This is what I'm moving on, right? Because you are a true product manager. You're not taking orders from people. Now, if you're in a toxic environment, which is this is an anti-pattern, if leadership is dictating what you need to do, that's a really bad environment to be in. Get out. Don't be there. That's for a different story. We can talk about politics and stuff on another day. All right. Any other questions? Okay, cool. All right. So this next part of the class, I really want to get into giving you a very high level overview of UX design, UI elements that you just really need to know. Like when I say know, like memorize, like you have to know what these words. It's kind of like, if you're a chef, you need to know certain vocabulary. If you're a travel advisor, there's other, insurance, there's all this vocabulary. If you're a product manager, we have certain vocabulary, and part of that is you need to know what certain components are, right? You don't say like button, you say CTA, right? There's a banner, there's a carousel. You need to know the difference. You need to understand what all this stuff is. So I'm going to walk through some of this stuff right now. And give me 1 second.
Probably while you're looking at that, button equals to CTA. It not necessarily has to be a button anymore, right? It can be an image, it can be a GIF, anything
Mhm.
on. So that's why
I'm sorry. What's your question?
for like you said, button equals to CTA, call to action, right? So the reason why it's call to action is because it doesn't have to be a button. It can be some text, it can be an image, it can be a GIF, it can be anything,
Yeah. So
right?
I'm sorry. I kind of said that in the wrong order. One example of a CTA is a button. So a CTA is what we call a call to action.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
all right.
So are there more of those? Like, yeah, you're about to bullet plan. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to actually give you guys about 40 UI elements that I want you to know. Right now, I'm just going to introduce some that you definitely 100% need to know. But I'm going to, as part of your assignment, is I'm going to have you kind of read through and understand, the bulk of the UI components. So here we go. Can you guys see my screen? Fantastic. All right, so visual design is a fundamental aspect of UX that involves the creation of aesthetically pleasing and functional interfaces. It encompasses the use of typography, color, layout, and imagery to enhance the overall user experience and engage the audience. So the definition really is, of UX visual design is the process of creating interfaces that are both visually appealing and easy to use. Right. And obviously it's very important. It enhances user satisfaction and engagement. And on user satisfaction, well-designed interfaces lead to higher satisfaction, enjoyment of the product, and engagement. It's visually appealing, captures the attention, and encourages interaction and exploration, right? So it does have a very crucial role. There's different types of UX, right? You have interaction design. We talked about this last class. Visual design, there's usability teams, etc. But now it's all kind of, unfortunately, because of a lot of layoffs in the industry, your UX designer is kind of going to be the master of it all. So, you don't have to worry about who you're working with. Most likely your UX designer, they do all the visual design, the interaction design, they even write copy. I kind of feel sad for them, but they have to be the master of all now, everything that's UX related. But these are just some of the core principles: consistency, hierarchy, feedback, accessibility. We talked about accessibility. CTAs are calls to action. So like these are just some of the examples. I'm going to be again dropping a link for you guys to read through the entire list of 40 various different 40 plus different components and with examples. So I want you guys to fully understand all of them, but these are just examples. So sign up button, that's why is that a call to action? Because it's really calling you to action, right? Look at it, it's a big red button. It's calling you to click it. The action is clicking. Some people get confused. They're like, hey, like there's a big image. Is the image a CTA? No, it's calling you to look at it, but it's not calling you to take an action, right? A button is something you could interact with, you could click. That's why it's a call to action. A learn more link. So all links, every link is a CTA. Like a learn more link or any link on the site, anything in the navigation, anything you click with, you interact with, essentially, it's really a call to action, right? And then buy now, right? Like shop now. This is a call to action, right? Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Navigation bar. We just talked about that. Hero image. So the hero image, this is like, when you go to any modern website, that big image that's like right there, smack in the middle, right there on the landing page, above the fold, that is what we call a hero image. It's very high quality, visually striking, has prominent placement, grabs your attention. Typically, there's one major hero image. And again, when we say hero image, we mean above the fold. So, like when there's a page, imagine there's a page and you land on the homepage, right? Imagine that's the homepage. And imagine everything below this little rectangle. Imagine this is the rest of the page, right? You'd have to scroll to get to the rest of it. So everything that's what we call above the fold, right? Everything from here to here, this is what we call above, like everything that you could see. Like right now, do you guys see this bottom area right here? Everything from here to here, this is above the fold. Everything below this area, this line, this line, everything below this line, we call this the fold, right? And anything below that's called below the fold. This is above the fold. Why is this important? Because when you land on a landing page or any page for that matter, the first thing you see is the stuff that's what? Above the fold. This is the most important thing. If this sucks, no one's going to scroll. Forget it. I don't care. Like, that's why your hero image obviously is above the fold. Does that make sense, everyone? Tasneem, does that make sense? All right. Cards. So you guys see cards all the time, right? These are like super popular, right? This idea of like, you see these little cards that have information on it, and they're used for there are many different ways you could use cards, right? Whether it's blog posts, previews, certain product features, event announcements. So cards are used now in all modern websites. Anything that basically kind of looks like this, right? You could pretty much say it's like a card, right? Like you go to a site and you see like Amazon is famous for this, right? When you go to Amazon, like they have all these little cards and you scroll down, and there's more and more of these cards. These are cards. Does this make sense? Thumbs up. Let me see a thumbs up if you get it. If I don't see a thumbs up, okay, good. I'm seeing it. All right. Fantastic. Breadcrumbs. So breadcrumbs, let me show, actually I like to show Best Buy. Because they have a good use case for breadcrumbs. So if you've ever gone to Best Buy, I am a Best Buy junkie. I'm sorry, guys. I like going to Home Depot, but not as much as I like going to Best Buy, because I really truly am a nerd, a techie. I'm the biggest techie you'll find. Like I just love gadgets. I love, like, you could drop me off at Best Buy and like my wife knows I'm good. Like she'll go to JCPenney and she'll go shopping and I'll go to Best Buy. And all my kids will come with me and I'm good, man. You can keep me there for 2-3 hours. I'm straight. Like I can stay there for so long. But regarding their website, right, it gets deeper and deeper. So let's experiment. So if I click on, let's say we're looking for computers, right? If I click on this little area, there's so many sections here to click, right? If I click on laptops, let's go to something else. Let's go to computer. Let's go to mice and keyboards. Okay, they did the search. So look really carefully at the breadcrumbs. The breadcrumbs are this area on the top left-hand side. You guys see it right there? You guys see this? Best Buy computers and tablets and computer accessories. These are called breadcrumbs. Thumbs up if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you guys have used breadcrumbs or if you've even recognized it, but it's basically like a tree. Like it kind of shows, like instead of figuring out how to get back to the other area you were at before, you could just literally click on this and then you're one step above. So it's super helpful. And then if you're like, oh, okay, cool. I just want to go one step above, I could click on computers and tablets and it goes to the next section up. So this is the usage of breadcrumbs. In a lot of like new modern navigation and stuff, I do see it kind of disappearing. But for e-commerce sites that have a lot of products like Best Buy and like AT&T, for example, and these sites, they're gonna have breadcrumbs.
Is it better to have breadcrumbs? I mean, I noticed that there are multiple sites don't have that breadcrumbs.
It really depends on the user experience. It really depends on your persona, and it really depends on, like Best Buy still hasn't got rid of it. And I bet you anything the reason why is because their persona, they just love using it. Right now, if you look at the way that like the newest trends with like the newest modern navigations, they're completely changing the game. It's kind of like fashion, like like fashion. If you look at fashion 2025, like nobody's actually rocking and wearing the latest fashion, right? Unless you're a trendsetter, right? Usually it takes like 5 to 10 years and then everyone's comfortable wearing that. It's the same thing with websites, right? Like people, on major websites where you have a really big, massive, audience, you might not use something that would be confusing for your audience. If you have a Generation X audience, then you probably will not change it too much. If you have Gen Z or you have, Gen Alpha, then they're a lot more internet natives and they're going to be okay with, trying new experiences and trying a new navigation. Remember, if they can't find what you're looking for in like 30 seconds, if you're really lucky and they're super old, maybe they'll stay for 2 minutes and then they're gone, right? So, all right, forums. Obviously, you guys know what forums are: contact forums, sign up forums, right? These are just another type of UI, and it's very common. You guys are familiar with it. So that, in a nutshell, that kind of gives you a very, very quick high-level overview. Now I'm going to kind of deep dive into the document that I was going to have you guys read, and this is the last thing I'm going to end with. So just bear with me, and I'm going to kind of go rapid fire. I'm going to go fast just because you're going to have a chance to kind of go through all of these yourself. But I'm just going to really, really rapidly go through this. So there's a lot of sites. Like I'm not going to redesign the wheel and create a whole bunch of slides with this stuff. This guy did a really fantastic job. I love it. And it's not just for designers. Again, this is our language too, right? So you got to know it. So let's get into it. So he starts off with the types of UI elements. He breaks it into input control, navigation, and informational components. So input controls, things like, you're inputting text, radio buttons, checkboxes, drop-down menus, right? He has a whole section on that. Navigation components. So we talked about breadcrumbs, but there's so many more: tabs, sidebars, navigation. Informational components, tooltips. This is really big. Pop-ups. You guys know what pop-ups are. Notifications, etc. So I'm going to run through this list and we're going to take a dive. So let's look at the most common. So let's start with icons. You guys know what icons are essentially. I actually have a really cool, two really cool free sites to get all kinds of icons that I'll be sharing with you guys later. Bento menu. So there are many different, you guys, the most famous menu that all of you guys are familiar with, when you think of a menu, you probably essentially think of this particular menu, which is what? The hamburger menu. They they call this hamburger. Memorize it, right? Like it's got to be part of your vocabulary. Like you can't be like, that thing. Like that thing doesn't cut it, right? Like when you're talking in an interview, you'll talk about the hamburger menu, right? This is like the most common menu on almost every single site. All of you guys have seen it. You click it, and then the menu pops open. There's other types of menus, right? This is funny. They're calling. I didn't know that it's called meatballs, by the way. I had no idea. But the three dots, you guys know what the three dots are, right? The vertical three dots. They call this the kebab. They call this meatballs. I didn't know that. I guess that's their terminology. I don't care if you memorize that. The three dots is what I call it. Okay. Bento menu, because it looks like a Japanese bento box. And then the doner menu. I don't know if you caught like the whole meat theme, but that's like a doner kebab. Looks a little different. Search fields, right? Check boxes, buttons, right? CTAs, right? And there's different states of the buttons: default, the hover state, if it's pressed, if it's disabled, right? I mean, this is obvious, and I think all of us know this, but it's good to just kind of review that. And I want you to read through all of this as well. Slider controls, right? Whether it's for volume or for this is a cool component that you guys should be familiar with. Sometimes this is a good solution, right? Carousels. This is like this is such an important component. There's an entire reading I want you guys to read through to understand different types of carousels. So these are the sliding carousels. You slide it like this with your finger, and then you look at it. Feeds. So you guys are all familiar with TikTok and Facebook, and I mean Instagram. You guys know what feeds are. Sidebar, drop downs, comments. These are all like things that you're already familiar with. Notifications, breadcrumbs. There it is, right? The breadcrumbs that we were talking about. Text fields, radio buttons, right? Tabs. This is this is important as well. Progress bar, right? This is very, very useful, especially when you're trying to have customers go through anything. Very critical to show progress bars now, right? It's like the studies are in, right? Like you want people feel good. It's like gamified. Like they want to continue. They feel like, oh man, I'm almost there. Like if you don't see a progress bar, you don't know how long this thing's going to take. If it's 5 pages, you're going to be like, man, I'll do this later. But if you're almost there and you're at the third spot and there's only 2 more spots left, that's motivating, right? Show a progress bar. A modal window. This is like a pop-up. This is modals are very popular for desktop. On mobile web, we don't use modals. We actually take people to like a page. Accordions. So have you guys seen this before? You click on this and it drops down, right? There's a name for it. It's called an accordion. You got to remember this one. You got to memorize. Like there's a few things you got to know, and this is like you got to know what an accordion is, right? Because you don't want to be like, yeah, that thing. You click on it and it looks like a little arrow. Like just say it's an accordion, right? Just call it what it is. It expands and collapses. Tooltip, very important, right? That little question bar, it's everywhere. You click on the little question mark, and like you get a little pop-up. That's called a tooltip. It's called a tool. It's not a pop-up. It's called a tooltip, right? And tooltips are, they're progressed now. Like you could click it. Sometimes you could click it and you could actually have other CTAs that are part of it. They could even have like little carousels that you could kind of swipe through. So they could get really interesting and depending on what you want to use it for. Toggle switches. Toggles are, important, especially as filters, right? If you're trying to filter something, toggles. Pagination. So especially in search results, on the bottom, you're going to see this pagination. Alert box, image galleries, avatar, card layout, hover states, loading spinners. It's so funny, loading spinners, because there's so many different versions of them. You know, and it's funny, right? Because all of us have a visceral reaction. Like, look at this one, right? Like, I don't know if you guys are like me, but this one right here, this is like the spinning thing of death, right? Like when you see this, you're just like I'm done. Restart the thing. So if that's such a bad experience, don't use that. Use something different, like this one or this one, right? Call to actions, we talked about that a million times. Forms, a stepper, right? This is a little bit different. They're calling this a stepper. Before they called it progress bar, so very similar concept. Pop-up menu. This is going away, right? This is like old school. You guys know what pop-ups are, right? Everybody hates pop-ups, so this is kind of going away. Footers, hamburger menu. I don't know why they're repeating it. Scroll bar. So scroll bars, on the top, you can have them on the right, on the left. And I think scroll bars as a thing, like it's just, I feel like it's so useless, right? Personally. Links, calendar picker. This is like, I can't remember. I think somebody had mentioned it. I think Sid, you mentioned the calendar picker when we were talking about user stories. Breadcrumb navigation. We're almost done, guys. File upload field and status indicators. So it wasn't too bad, right? I mean, I think you guys, 90% of this you already seen, but now you know some of the stuff has names, and I want you just to know what these names are. It's not good enough for you just to know the names. I want you to like be able to articulate those names. It needs to be part of your working vocabulary, because one of the things as a product manager is you need to be articulate, right? You need to be able to talk intelligently. And what I need you guys to do now, as product managers understanding UX design, is to be able to speak intelligently when you talk about UX design. Because I know you guys, you're getting technical, you know how to write user stories. That's all great. But I want you guys to now start speaking more effectively, because the more you could, if you're talking to a designer, you're talking about accordion, you got the respect. I mean, it's the little things, man. I'm not I am third generation Pakistani, by the way, third generation, which means my grandfather came to this country, right? So Nadal's looking at me like, what? Wait a minute. He came to Canada. I know. I'm Canadian, okay? I'm Canadian. But my grandfather came to Canada. What was that, Nadal?
I said Toronto is basically the States.
Pretty much.
We
I was
consider
born in Mississauga.
we've disowned you guys.
Yeah, Nadal actually met my grandfather. SubhanAllah. But la ilaha illallah. So what was I saying? Where was I going? Where were we? What were you talking about? Somebody help me out. It's getting late.
You're a third generation Pakistani. Go on.
What was the whole point of that?
I have no idea. That's how you started.
You're trying to say that the persona perspective that or the development of a UI design requires some knowledge of background. Maybe that's what you're going to.
Maybe it's something to do with the
Mentioned
kebab menu.
earlier too. So
I have no idea what I was talking about.
Sounding intelligent, articulate.
Respect.
So basically, if you have a background, you can command respect based upon where you came from.
Oh yeah. That's thank you. That's right. You saved me. Yeah. So So I remember now. Yeah, I remember now. Urdu. I was gonna talk about the language Urdu. So like I don't speak Urdu, right? My Urdu is like terrible. The language of Pakistan. I'm really terrible. If I speak Urdu, automatically people are gonna know that you're not from the country, you're not native, right? And I can't get that respect, right? Whereas somebody else that does speak Urdu, if they go and talk to another guy who speaks Urdu, automatically there's camaraderie. Same thing with UX design, right? If you speak the language, you're like, hey, I think we need an accordion. I think we need to make a dynamic carousel. Now you're talking their language. They're like, all right, I'm finally talking to somebody that understands me, right? now it's like, okay, cool, you're establishing relationships. This whole deal, man, is relationships. Relationships. It's more important than anything else. You might not be the smartest cookie in the group, but you're really good at establishing relationships. And next thing you know, people are forgiving you and people are getting your back and people are doing your work because you have great relationships with people, All right. I know this was a long class. I really appreciate you guys staying for the whole time. What we're going to do, I'm going to be, you're going to have your very first project this weekend, and essentially it's going to be released. You're going to have a team to work on, and essentially it's going to have UX design components mixed with some user stories that you're going to be writing. So that way you kind of start off with a little bit of design, a little bit of identifying the user flow, but using a template that I have, and then taking that and writing a few user stories in Jira. So not anything too hardcore, but something that is going to really essentially bring everything together that we've been doing in the last 3 weeks.